Fox News alert: hundreds are reportedly dead after an explosion at a hospital in Gaza. Israel pushing back after Hamas claimed the carnage was caused by an Israeli airstrike. Brand new video showing the chaotic scene outside the hospital, where up to 500 people are feared dead. Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu is reacting and saying, quote, "The entire world should know it was barbaric. Terrorists in Gaza that attacked the hospital in Gaza and not the IDF. Those who brutally murdered our children also murder their own children." Mike Tobin is in southern Israel with the latest on that developing situation. Mike?
And, Judge, essentially what we're hearing from the IDF, it was Palestinian Islamic Jihad that launched a barrage of rockets that was going to go over the hospital there. One of those rockets, at least one of them, was errant, struck in the vicinity of the hospital, causing the explosion and hundreds of civilian casualties. Again, that is from the IDF. And here is an explanation, or at least a version, from an advisor to Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu.
Israel does not target places like hospitals. They're not a target for us, and we wouldn't have deliberately hit a hospital. Number two, we know that at the time of this tragedy, that Hamas was firing a barrage of rockets at Tel Aviv. Up to a third of rockets fired from Gaza fall inside the Gaza Strip because they malfunction. It is possible that this was one of those rockets that malfunctioned.
Now, the Arab world was quick to blame the Israelis. In fact, in the Gaza Strip, the Palestinian Health Ministry, run by Hamas, said it was an Israeli airstrike. We've seen demonstrations form up in the West Bank and Amman, Jordan. Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas dropped out of his planned meeting with President Biden for tomorrow in protest over this explosion at the hospital. Judge?
Have you heard anything, Mike, about the misfires, previous misfires before today?
There have been multiple misfires. Keep in mind, these rockets, a lot of them are just made in machine shops in the Gaza Strip. They have misfired in the past. They've hit civilians. There's one case where an infant was killed by one of these errant rockets in the past. And the Palestinians have always been quick to blame Israel. It takes a while for the facts to come out, as it did in this case from the Israeli side. All right. We'll go around the table. Harold?
Mike, thank you for all your great reporting. You've been fantastic, along with the entire team there. Has there been any comment from the Biden administration? I know that the meeting has been canceled, but has the president or Blinken, anybody responded, number one, on that front? And two, have there been any other reaction from other Arab leaders about meeting with President Biden on this upcoming trip?
Well, you've heard a lot of protests and a lot of anger come from the surrounding Arab states, and that will always happen. Whenever it looks like Israel is at fault, you get a lot of anger galvanizing and unifying the surrounding Arab states, and that indeed is happening all the way to Turkey. As far as what's happening in Washington, I'm really buried in this stuff right now, Congressman, and I don't know what's happening in D.C.
Keep up the great work and be safe.
Jesse?
Does the IDF, Mike, have any technology that they can show to the world that proves, in terms of surveillance, that this missile did not come from Israel, that in fact it actually was a missile from terrorists in Gaza?
Well, the drones are up. I can hear the drones right now. They're always surveying the Gaza Strip and the area of combat. Israel has air superiority. They don't have any reason to take the drones down other than weather. There's an Al Jazeera broadcast that's going around on the internet right now. I can't verify it, but they claim, at least through social media, that it shows the moment of impact, the moment the Islamic Jihad rocket went errant and hit the hospital, but not verified, Jesse.
All right. Dana?
Mike, you said something important, that the Gaza Health Ministry is run by Hamas, and Hamas runs the hospital. Correct. And Hamas hides their weapons inside the hospital. I'm curious, it's a little bit along the lines of what Jesse just said, which is when something like this happens and there's an immediate reaction. In fact, some major media organizations immediately said that this was Israel's fault. But how do you go about on the ground there as a reporter to try to get to the truth? What is the best way if we know that Hamas runs the health ministry and runs the hospital?
Well, Gaza is very difficult right now. It's difficult to communicate with Gaza, and your contacts have all fled south. Some of them don't have their phones working, so any information out of Gaza is difficult. If you get it through the Hamas sources, know that they are playing the PR game. It's a very important component of their strategy. So you have to doubt everything you receive. The Israelis were a little slower to respond because they wanted to do some analysis of the facts first. So it took a little while to get the version from Israel, where the Arab reaction was immediate, and in fact it spread all around the Arab world while the Israelis took a moment to do some analysis. We'll see if we get more data going forward from the Israelis, more evidence, more proof going forward, but right now the IDF says it was indeed an errant rocket from Palestinian Islamic Jihad, not Hamas.
Hey, Mike, it's Greg. We know Hamas's strategy is to maximize civilian deaths, even their own, sometimes especially their own, to galvanize the globe against Israel. Israel's strategy is opposite of that. They don't try to hit any civilians. And yet, after every one of these things, there always seems to be the outrage always builds towards Israel, no matter what happens, especially in the Western media. Do you know why?
Well, that goes back a long time. Frankly, it goes back to the event that the Palestinians call the Nakba, when the state of Israel was formed and the Palestinians claimed they were run off their land. So there's always been unity. There's always been anger against Israel, and you always see the not only the Arab states, but the media will generally be quick to reach a conclusion against Israel. And then you have the overwhelming fact that Israel was conducting unprecedented airstrikes into the Gaza Strip. Something blows up, and it's not a surprise that the first conclusion that people would jump to would be that it was Israel. But you also have deadly rockets being fired out by the Palestinians all the time, and they're not good quality weapons.
Okay, Mike, thanks so much. And we'll take it around the table for a few minutes. You know, Jesse, there is video floating around. You would ask the question about whether or not there was any way to identify, but there's video floating around that has not yet been certified or confirmed, proving that it's Palestinian. They say you see a massive barrage fired at Israel on the right, and a few seconds later, there's an explosion on the left in a direction opposite where all the other missiles are going. So it may be as simple as a video that can show what's happened here.
And Israel should be very vigilant in exploiting their technology and surveillance capabilities to win this war in the press, because the press has a lot of effect upon what the Israeli military is going to be able to do, because you know they're going to be under so much pressure to go in on the ground and go in quickly when it's not an easy job when you deal with tunnels. This strike obviously complicates the Biden visit. He did not expect this to happen. Now he's going down a day later after 200 civilians are allegedly dead. And there's an information warfare situation that he needs to get out there and say, if I were the president, I would be very clear that you cannot believe what you hear from the Palestinians. You cannot believe what you hear from Hamas. They are traditionally deceptive, and they're even denying some of the things that they did to these children and to these women. So if I were Israel, I would just be flooding the zone with as many facts and as many exhibits to prove that what they're doing is righteous and what they're doing is surgical, because this is tough. This is really, no one likes to see people die in a hospital like that.
Yeah, and you know, Dana, I mean, given that they're historically known for putting themselves and putting situations where they're going to be targeted near a hospital, this is kind of consistent with their game plan.
It is. One thing I was thinking about that's different, though, from years past is the technology that civilians have, or even that the terrorists had, right? So the terrorists had their phones and their GoPro cameras because they wanted us to see the terror that they were creating. And a situation like this, even a few years ago, would have taken maybe days to figure out, was it an errant rocket? Here we are just mere hours later with different video and different set of facts and different angles of the video, so that Israel, which has a PR war that it needs to wage as well in order to protect itself from attack that it is the one who causes civilian harm or humanitarian crises, there's actually some real benefit to having this immediate viewpoint. It's a strange way to do warfare right now. So now Hamas has decided that innocents are the ones who can be targeted. But now we also have the video evidence that we can use immediately to see as journalists. That's why I asked Mike, like, how on the ground are they figuring that out? It's very chaotic there, but within hours, we were able to figure this out.
Yep. Yep. Greg?
I'm surprised that Hamas did. I would assume that they would deny hitting a hospital because that's where they keep their command centers. That would have been my excuse. But I think the PR war is pointless because this has been going on forever. And the media continues just to jump to the same conclusions. And everybody knows what Hamas does. Their whole point is to maximize civilian casualties, to create global disgust about the Jews. No matter what the Jews do, that's what's going to happen. I think that at this point, you just try to win. And the PR stuff, that's secondary.
I think it's secondary, but it's definitely a component when you're dealing with a lot of disingenuous people in the press.
And Harold, isn't it important to do this now if they're worried about is the IDF gunning for them?
President Biden, in his words a few days ago, encouraged the Israelis to respond with force to defend their country and to follow the law. What I saw from the Israelis this afternoon was what you would want to see from a democracy, what you expect to see. They refrained from speaking too quickly. They investigated. They got the facts and laid out, and we likely will get video, the video that we've seen and others may have seen. We've not showed it, I think, yet, but we may see this video later in the evening proving that this was not an Israeli strike. The Israelis don't do this, as the senior advisor to Mr. Netanyahu has repeated. Furthermore, this incident, it's tragic, and we should all acknowledge the tragedy of it. And two, it will further isolate Hamas and further isolate Iran. I agree with many around the table, the narrative around the media and where some in the media have gone. But the fact that the Hamas immediate reaction has always been to blame the Israelis, but it's now on a global media stage for everyone to see what's happening. It's tragic what is happening and what has happened, but the Israelis didn't do it. And isolating Iran and isolating Hamas has to be at the forefront of what we try to get done here.
All right.
Hi, everyone. I'm Brian Kilmeade. I want you to do me a favor. I want you to click to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page. This is the only way that I know for sure that you're not going to miss any great commentary, any great news bites, any great interviews coming your way on Fox. You can get it all here on YouTube. So subscribe right now.